Honor guard! Attend! Forward! March! Detail, halt! Ready, face! Veterans, officers, firefighters, honor guard, attend! Present arms!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Keep 'em up.
Ladies, if you could lead us now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order! Look! Detail, ready, face! Forward! March!
Thank you all. You can please be seated. Before I continue any further, I'd like to introduce members of my Scottsdale City Council joining us today, and some other elected officials and special guests. Start with our council members who are here with us. Active council members, Councilwoman Linda Milhaven. Councilman Guy Phillips. Councilman David Smith. We have some other former council members with us, inclusive of a former mayor, Mary Manross. Former Councilman Dennis Robbins. And former Councilman Jim Bruner. I'm sorry, we also have former Councilman Don Pryor, who's a Navy veteran. We have our active city manager, Brian Biesmeyer, here with us, who is also a United States Army veteran. We have Congressman David Schweikert here, who we're hearing from later. And And we have Michael Collins, I believe, the Paradise Valley City Council Mayor. We also have with us, you'll hear from him later, Dr. Bob Parsons, who's here with us. He'll be speaking to us later, a Marine veteran. You know, it's always great to see so many young people here. You know, we were talking a little bit about the younger people dancing and that, but we also have the younger people who are learning a bit about our civics and about our country's history and that. And it's always wonderful to see when we have people here that are engaged in what this country, how this country came about, and why we are what we are today. And also to see them in commemorating and recognition of our veterans' commitment and contribution to our great country. It's a very important part of this ceremony because it's a responsibility of each generation of Americans to understand the sacrifice of those who have gone before us. Special thanks in particular to the members of the Scottsdale Mayor's Youth Council who are here with us today. I also want to make a special mention to the Scottsdale Police Mounted Unit, who's back there. You might have noticed those large horses that they are on. And the police explorers, I believe, are here as well. But in any case, they're also... And they're actually helping with the work here today. We have a great program today, but our most important mission here is to honor the veterans. And the best part of this event is what we always have, why we have so many veterans from different generations joining us. And thanks to all of you and all of our veterans for being here. No matter when you served or where you served, today we honor your service, your sacrifice, and your dedication to the United States of America. The people of Scottsdale have great admiration and the utmost gratitude for the men and women who selflessly served our country. Yes, we'll do that again when we say, would those of you who have served in the United States military please stand if you're able, and please raise your hands if not, so we may applaud you again, please, in recognition. Thank you all. Our second most important mission is to say thank you to the families of veterans. You also have sacrificed and kept the home fires burning while your loved ones and family members have been on duty, often to remote areas of the world. You deserve a round of applause as well, so thank you as well. And today, recognizing military families takes on a special significance. In October, I signed a proclamation making Scottsdale one of the first hidden hero cities in Arizona. We're now part of a nationwide effort to focus attention on the estimated 5.5 million Americans who provide daily care for military members and veterans who are injured and wounded and ill. The legacy of someone's honorable military service should always be a point of pride for that person and his or her families. For the veterans who come home with grievous physical and sometimes emotional damage, the legacy of that service takes on new dimensions. The hidden heroes who care for them, and I suspect we have some right here with us today, face challenges and difficulty in nearly every facet of their lives. The Hidden Heroes program will help caregivers find support, connecting them with resources and programs, or simply with others in similar situations. If you or someone you know fits this description, please visit Hidden Heroes Organization for more .org, I should say, for more information. That's hiddenheroes.org. Earlier this summer, the City Council also approved the city's participation in the East Valley's Regional Veterans Court. This is another way we can support our veterans beyond mere words. You know, it just so happens that just last week I visited Tempe, where the East Valley Veterans Court functions, and listened to some of the developments, some of the things that have been provided and done for veterans who are in trouble, within their own lives, legally and otherwise. This is not anything outside the law, but this is certainly to provide the kind of resources to try to bring back and reacclimate some of our service members back into the community in an easier fashion. For some veterans, the battle continues long after they leave military service. Anger, depression, and a lack of structural environment can lead to trouble with the law. The Veterans Court seeks to help veterans overcome those hurdles. As I said, the court is physically located in Tempe, but 2 afternoons per month, hearings are scheduled for Scottsdale veterans facing misdemeanor charges. We participate, along with a number of other cities, with Tempe in those events. But unlike traditional courts, the Veterans Treatment Court directly connects veterans with services to help them overcome behavioral issues that may be at the root of their legal problems. While in Veterans Court, defendants also receive assistance in finding housing, employment, enrolling in school, and applying for benefits. Each case is different, but the goal is to enroll veterans in programs that treat their underlying issues instead of sentencing them to fines and jail time. And finally, I want to mention Central Arizona Shelter Services, which is providing information at today's event and coordinating the presence of so many great military veteran organizations at the tables and back. CAS is the largest homeless shelter in Arizona with a total of 470 beds. And unfortunately, many veterans are among the people they serve. But the good news is that CAS has a dedicated veterans department to case managers, housing, and employee specialists. In 2016, CAS has housed 99 veterans. These people served their nation, and now, thanks to CAS, they are now sleeping on the concrete. They're not sleeping on the concrete in the heat. They are living in their own apartment and getting their lives back in order. Thank you to every organization and every individual who supports our veterans and their families. Thank you in particular to retired Marine First Sergeant Patricia Hernandez from CAS for her assistance in coordinating much of what is here today. And I encourage you all to meet these people and their organizations after our program's over. It's now my great honor to introduce a very active member of our community. He probably needs very little introduction to most people in this room. He's not just a veteran, he's in tune with not just veteran issues, but on all manners and topics. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Congressman David Schweikert. David, do you want me to hold her?
I would let you hold her, but there was just, I think, an issue.
Well, thank you.
Though you know you're having an interesting time, the mounted officers in the back are great, but she kept pointing at him going, doggy, doggy, doggy. And my wife is terrified I'm going to go out and buy her a pony, so now I can explain. I'm just getting her a really big doggy. Look, we had the chance to do something actually joyful this morning. Early this morning, Olivia and I, we went and visited a couple senior retirement communities that are here. My congressional district, I'm blessed, I go all the way to 43rd Avenue. Showed up at both of them about 45 minutes early. And to sit there with one gentleman who is a Korean War veteran, sharp as a tack, had an amazing story. He said he was on the periphery of the Cochin Reservoir. And just to have someone who lived the history sit there and talk to a politician who's holding a little girl and tell his experience. At the second center we visited, yes, all right, she's yours.
Wait a minute, you already explained this issue
Yeah,
to me now. So.
yeah, well, it's okay. It's what we do for a living. We get on. But at the second facility, we had a gentleman who he said he was like 90, but sharp as a tack, and was telling us some World War II stories. Please, if any of you have family, that have had these experiences, find a moment and ask them to share, even if it's uncomfortable. My father is someone who has always basically left the room when we asked him to share his military experience. I think it's very, very powerful, particularly when you consider this. Only about 7.2% of our population has had any experience in the armed services. Today, only 1% of our population has an active family member. We need to tell the story because we also need to understand who provided us our freedom. And then when we understand the story, we need to say thank you. Thank you. Now to go see the really big doggies again.
Thank you very much, Congressman Schweikert. He doesn't want me to call him Congressman, but I just am compelled to. Next, we will hear from Joan Fudala, a woman who literally wrote the book on Scottsdale. Several, as a matter of fact. Joan is a full-time historian and author of The People's Preserve, Historic Scottsdale, A Life from the Land, and Images of America, Scottsdale, among others. Prior to her encore career as a community historian, Joan spent 26 years in public relation as a public relations executive. She served 9 years on active duty as a public relation or affairs officer for the United States Air Force. 2 of those years at Luke Air Force Base, and 12 as an Air Force Reserve public affairs officer at the Pentagon. She's here to share some of Scottsdale's interesting military history. Ladies and gentlemen, Joan Fudala.
I usually don't use notes, but it'll help me stay on time. Congressman, Mayor, Bob, honored veterans and guests, thank you so much for giving me the privilege to speak on behalf of my fellow veterans, both past and present. As was mentioned, I was a public affairs officer at Luke, and I can't believe that was 40 years ago. And once a public affairs officer, always a public affairs officer, so I'm here to boast for a few minutes about Scottsdale's veterans and their accomplishments. You know, we can never thank veterans enough for their sacrifice and service as warriors and as peacekeepers. But what I'd like to focus on today is thanking the veterans, past and present, not only for their service, but also the service that they've done in Scottsdale since they hung up their uniforms. And we probably wouldn't even have the Scottsdale that we know today if it weren't for the leadership of so many veterans. You know, it started with our founder and namesake, Winfield Scott, a Union Army infantry officer during the Civil War. He was wounded 3 times on the battlefield, and despite the pain, the lifetime pain from those wounds, he enthusiastically traveled all over the West, settling new towns. In his post-war career as a Baptist minister and Army chaplain. He first visited here in the Salt River Valley in 1888, loved what he saw, homesteaded land that would become Scottsdale for $2.50 an acre, I might add, and became Scottsdale's #1 promoter. Scott especially urged Civil War veterans to come here because there were so many opportunities available, even though we were just bare desert at that time. He not only founded the town that took his name, but also he was the one that really started our reputation as a center for health and well-being, started our tourism industry, helped start our school system, and okay, so I have a crush on Winfield Scott, and this is despite the fact that he was a lifelong teetotaler and always wanted to see Scottsdale remain a dry town. Oh well. You can't credit him for everything. You know, another Civil War veteran, W.J. Murphy, built the Arizona Canal to provide water that was necessary to settle this land and farm it and ranch it. And in 1910, Murphy and his son also opened our first luxury resort, the Ingleside Inn. And Bob, this might be important to you too. He opened the first golf course in Scottsdale, and that was in 1910. So you're carrying on a great tradition. World War I veterans started the American Legion post here in 1935 after they returned home and got their lives back together again. Today, Post 44 is our oldest continuously active civic organization. And over 81 years, the men and women of the Post, along with many other veterans, have participated in patriotic ceremonies, have sponsored youth, athletic, and citizenship programs, and have provided support for each other, as have our other most distinguished veterans organizations like the VFW, the Disabled American Veterans, the Korean War Veterans, Vietnam Veterans, Jewish War Veterans, and other organizations. And wow, had they benefited Scottsdale. Veterans returning from World War II flocked to Scottsdale and changed our unincorporated farm town into an internationally recognized center for tourism, arts, business, and healthcare. Like Lloyd Kiva, an Army veteran, Wes Segner, a Navy veteran, and George Cavalier, an Army Air Corps veteran, who were of the 6 who started the Arizona Craftsman Center in 1946 and really put us on the map as an arts and crafts center after the war. Wes Segner was also the founding president of the Chamber of Commerce in 1947 and led the drive to get Scottsdale incorporated several years later. Army Air Corps pilot from World War II, Bill Arthur, was considered the grandfather of the Scottsdale Airport and Air Park, which has become our largest employment center and the 3rd largest employment center in the entire state. I couldn't begin to list them all, but let me just give you a few more examples of the special places that perhaps we take for granted, but that are here in Scottsdale because of the ingenuity and leadership we've received from our veterans. So let's start right here. Navy veteran Guy Stillman and his parents donated the land for this park, our cherished railroad park. Guy then enlisted the help of veterans, reservists, and National Guardsmen and women to help lay the tracks for his beloved railroad that he also donated to the park. And then Guy continued to serve for decades as the #1 patron of the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park. And then, speaking of other veterans that had an impact on this park, the train car behind me was guided and lovingly restored by a veteran of one of our Allied forces during World War II, Zina Kuhn, who served in the Polish Army during World War II. And after she saw the train car, which she called Zina's choo-choo, restored, she's the one that actually urged the city to start this very ceremony, which has been held in front of her boxcar since 1989. Marine Corps veteran Bill Walton was the one that originally suggested the idea to turn the Indian Bend Wash into a system of parks rather than a concrete channel, and gave us the Indian Bend Wash as a wonderful recreation area rather than a disaster when the Indian Bend Wash floods. And Navy veteran Chet Andrews was a key mover and shaker when we were looking at perhaps preserving the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve, creating the preserve throughout the 1990s and 2000s. And Chet co-founded the Preserve Steward program of the McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy, and now there are over 600 stewards that take care of the preserve, all influenced by Chet's leadership. Coast Guard veteran Benny Gonzalez designed the buildings of our iconic Civic Center. Air Force veteran and former city councilman Jim Bruner was at the forefront of creating the Scottsdale Cultural Council, in building a Major League Baseball stadium in Scottsdale, and in leading the long-term effort to open Scottsdale's Museum of the West. 4 veterans have led what is now Honor Health. Dr. A.E. Carpenter, who was a chaplain during World War II. Dr. Art Nelson, who served in the Army Corps of Engineers. Dr. Jim Shamadan, who was both an Air Force pilot and a doctor, and Max Paul, who served as an Army medic in Vietnam. Marine Corps veteran Bruce Halley brought Discount Tire headquarters to Scottsdale and is a leading philanthropist. Educators like Marsh Trimble and Bill Jenkins have influenced future generations for civic duty. And thanks to two specific groups, I want to say, and that is civic leaders May Sue Talley and Sandra Day O'Connor, although not serving in uniform, served on the Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Service during the 1930s and gave people like myself great new opportunities as women in the armed forces, and certainly paved the way for someone like Scottsdale's own Rear Admiral Connie Mariano to become the White House doctor and serve under 3 separate presidents. And we can also thank the late Lincoln Ragsdale, a Tuskegee airman during World War II who helped courageously lead the civil rights movement in the Valley during the 1960s. The list goes on and certainly would include our keynote speaker, Bob, a Marine Corps veteran who created one of the most successful and recognized countries in America and continues to endow our community. The veteran leaders I've mentioned and those countless others that I don't have time to not only share characteristics, but they probably learned them or reinforced them while they were in the military. And those characteristics would be they're relentless in their pursuit of their mission, no matter what the challenges are. They focus on accomplishing that mission without regard as to who gets the credit. In fact, I'm probably in trouble with several of them because they know they didn't do it alone. It took a team, a squad, or a platoon to get the job done. And these men and women, these veterans, have also demonstrated the values of integrity, loyalty, unity, and a can-do attitude. So thank you to all of our veterans, past and present, not only for serving our country, but for serving Scottsdale. And thank you to their families who have shared your veterans' time with all of us. You together have made Scottsdale the best place on earth to live, work, learn, visit, raise a family, make friends, and enjoy the freedoms that you served so valiantly to protect. I salute you all.
Thank you, Joan, for that and for your service. Now I have the great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, is a man who needs really no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. The world came to know Bob Parsons as the founder of GoDaddy, one of America's original tech success stories, and one of the several very successful companies he founded. Today, he's the CEO and founder of Yam Worldwide, which is home to his entrepreneurial ventures in the fields of motorcycles, golf, real estate, marketing, innovation, and philanthropy. In 2012, Bob and his wife Renee founded Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation, which has awarded more than $109 million to charitable organizations here in Scottsdale and across the valley. The foundation focuses its support on nonprofit organizations that are successfully addressing issues associated with at-risk youth, homelessness, education, veterans needs, and medical care for the underserved population. But before all that, he was Lance Corporal Parsons, United States Marine Corps Infantry. During a combat tour in Vietnam in 1969, Bob earned the Combat Action Ribbon, the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, the Purple Heart, and a lot of valuable lessons he continues to use today. Bob Parsons is both a veteran for us to honor and also someone who devotes much of his time and fortune to supporting veterans and their families. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bob Parsons.
Well, hello, everybody. It's quite an honor for me to be here and to stand up in front of this distinguished group. I've met a number of veterans that served in World War II, and you two ladies are incredible, and so are you gentlemen, and what a treat for me it is to be here. You know, for me, Veterans Day is a very special time of year. And given the fact that it comes a day after the Marine Corps birthday, which for us Marines is a very special day indeed. Yeah. We're all just starting to sober up. It is incredibly important. You know, Veterans Day is the day when, you know, all of us who served were recognized by this great country of ours. But you know, whether we get recognized or not, we know what we did. You know, some of us volunteered. All of us answered the call from our country to serve. All of us did our duty. Some of us went to faraway places that had names we couldn't spell, or that we certainly never heard of. And while we were in these lands, we experienced conditions that were really difficult. Some of us wrestled and figured out how to stay alive in jungles. Others slogged through rice paddies. Many of us climbed mountains that were so high we thought we'd never get over them. And those of us now that are in the military deal with brutal sandstorms and know the taste of having a mouthful of sand when you'd rather be eating dinner. You know, we know what it's like to be wet and you can't get dry, and to be like that for days on end. We know what it's like when you can't wash, when you look forward to just maybe a glass of water, clean water, that's all you want. Or maybe what it's like to be suffocatingly hot and just not be able to cool off, or to be cold, so cold that you can't, you can't stop shivering. We know all those feelings. And yet all of us, we stayed on watch and we did our duty, didn't we? Yeah, we did. We know what it's like to experience mind-numbing pain, and we know what it's like to experience the cold taste of fear. You know, all of us know, I don't care what your religion is, when we were serving in our military, there's no atheists in a foxhole. Yet, we placed ourselves time and again in harm's way, and we confronted and we overcame the enemies of our country that would take away our freedoms. And because of what we did when we were footsore and ragged, when we were tired and hungry, and when we were thirsty and miserable, our country enjoys freedoms that they're available no other place in the world. And this America is truly the land of the free. Every time I listen to our national anthem, there's a line in that national anthem that is solely because of us veterans. And that line is simply, and our flag was still there. We're why our flag was still there. And when we hear that line, we know it's because of our efforts, and we can be proud because we also know, because of all those wonderful Americans that are going to follow in our footsteps, that are just like us, our flag will always be there. So veterans, let us be proud, because today is Veterans Day. Today is the day that America looks at us with a smile and nods with appreciation and thanks us for what we did. So happy Veterans Day. And from all of us, a special message to all of you from all of us who served in the Vietnam War. Thank you and welcome home. God bless you. God bless the USA. Thank you. Hi, I'm Bob Parsons, founder of Yam Worldwide, Parsons Extreme Golf, and GoDaddy.com. And I'm proud to say I'm an American entrepreneur. I'm joined here today by this incredible group of veterans from all three companies. This November 10th marks the 241st birthday of the United States Marine Corps. And November 11th is Veterans Day. In honor of these special occasions, we've created a video to celebrate the men and women who defend this great country of ours. But we're not stopping there. We're also partnering with the Semper Fi Fund to provide financial support for wounded, critically ill, and injured members of all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces and their families. Last year, with your help, we raised more than $18 million. This money changed the lives of veterans across the nation, and we want to do even better this year. Here's how it works. Visit semperfifund.org, give what you can, and the Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation will match your donation dollar for dollar up to $10 million. Together, we can raise up to $20 million to help the heroes who have sacrificed so much for all of us. Now enjoy our annual birthday salute to the United States Marine Corps. And if you have served or are serving in the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Coast Guard, know that this tribute is also for you. So happy birthday, Mother Green. Happy Veterans Day, one and all. Semper Fi. And a special message to all of you from those of us who served in Vietnam. Welcome home.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the rainbow
Thank you so very much, Bob. It's great to hear your stories. It's always great to hear you speak. And you're such a patriot, so thank you so very much. As we conclude today's ceremony, a final thank you to all of our veterans and their families, to our speakers and the guests for making today's ceremony so special. Thank you also to Shamrock Foods and Wildflower Bread Company for providing refreshments for today's event. And now we'll conclude the moment of silence while we reflect. I'm sorry, no, we do not have that. We will take a moment of silence in memory of all who are with the responsibility for protection of this country. So military, police, and fire. Let's just take a moment of silent prayer if you'd like, but just the thought as well. Now I'd like to ask you to stand if you can while we hear taps played by Scottsdale's official bugler, who I understand was dubbed by former Mayor Mary Manross as Bugler Extraordinaire, Gil Gifford.